Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let me start by just some brief commentary on MMA. You know, how many of you knew that Conor McGregor was actually fighting outside of his weight class? Right? I've talked to a few people about this. Very few people are aware of the fact that Conor McGregor fought out of his weight class during his recent loss. It just wasn't publicized. In my opinion, that's one of the problems with MMA. I view MMA as behind boxing in terms of just our awareness of it and our socialization. I understand MMA does really well on television. I understand the box office translates. No question about it. But the sport hasn't been around as long as professional boxing, at least not in its current format. And the fans know less about the sport because there's less of a tradition. Right? Let me also say, too, with regard to MMA, right? And understand, I'm a fan of MMA. I don't talk about it here online, but I'm a fan. People want the UFC model to come to professional boxing. Let's hope it never does, right? Because, in my opinion, Dana White has far too much power, right? Someone like Conor McGregor is, putting his career at risk. He's putting his reputation at risk in high-risk fights that the public doesn't realize are high risk. Right, in fights that are outside of his division, right? Also, the money involved. What I want people to do is to look at the TV ratings for MMA. Now, McGregor can talk about making seven figures. Look, you should make seven figures, given the amount of revenue the sport is bringing in, right? I would just feel more comfortable, quite frankly, if there were more promoters in the sport. If I got the feeling that it wasn't as centralized as it is, if I didn't feel that Dana White wasn't telling even star athletes like Conor McGregor, look, you need to do this for me to save this show. You need to move up weight classes. To fight an opponent that the public doesn't understand is naturally bigger than you. Right? I have to question that part of MMA. Let me say this too. Holly Holm lost. Okay, fair enough. I hope Ronda Rousey fully understands that her image, it's a Tyson image, right? Her reputation, quite frankly, is not worth risking on future MMA bouts. Had Mike Tyson walked away from the sport of boxing as a fighter after losing to Buster Douglas, right? There'd be a cottage industry out there of people wondering whether Tyson was the best ever, whether Tyson just had an off night, right? I don't think Mike Tyson helped his legacy by continuing to fight. Name me the big Tyson fight that he won after he lost to Buster Douglas, right? Evander Holyfield beats him twice. Lennox Lewis beats him, right? We thought of Tyson as, Iron Mike Tyson, right? Iron. The Buster Douglas fight has its own folklore. How long was Douglas on the canvas? Even in that loss, Tyson dropped his opponent. Right now, don't get me wrong. I'll agree that of all the former heavyweight champions out there who's still alive, I would say that Mike Tyson, who is currently a big-time star in China, right? He's in a movie. I think it's IP Man or something like that. IP Man 3. That's on fire at the box office over there. I think Mike Tyson has the baddest man on the planet persona. He has the best aura, the most box office, the biggest connection with fans, in my opinion, of all of the former heavyweight champions, right? It's like when you're thinking, hey, I need a guy who, comes across as a tough guy, a tough boss, right? A guy who, has beaten men up in the ring. When I need that kind of aura in a movie, there's Mike Tyson, right? I was watching The Hangover, and I remember the first time I saw Mike Tyson in that movie, I thought, all right, Mike Tyson, excellent. You understood that there was a star power there. I'm not saying he's the best ex-heavyweight champion, right? Lennox Lewis beat him and stuff like that. But let's say that Lennox Lewis doesn't translate in movies where you want some guy who's going to come across as tough, some guy who looks like he's been in dark alleys and knows his way around the edgier parts of the neighborhood. Now, what I want Ronda Rousey to do is to talk to Mike Tyson, right? Talk at length. Because Tyson, like Rousey, had a lot of people around him, right? When he lost to Buster Douglas. You always hear, hey, continue fighting. You can redeem yourself. You can come back and be even bigger and better. I'm just telling you that once you're at the very top of Mount Everest and people feel that you're challenging the entire sports paradigm, you're beating people in a matter of seconds, right? You're knocking folks out, right? You're submitting folks early, right? When people are wondering whether your matches are going to make it to, the 3-minute mark of the very first round, right? You never get back to there. Never. Ever. Right? In my opinion, Vladimir Klitschko has never made it back to where he was before he lost to Ross Purity. Right? So I hope Ronda Rousey thinks real hard about whether or not she wants to come back. Because she's talked about the personal devastation, the emotional toil losing did to her. Right? What I want her to consider is, hey, if I never fight again, right, how will people think of me? If they think of you as one of the best ever in your craft, then there's no reason to get back into the ring or the octagon, right? All right, well, let's talk about boxing. In my opinion, there are different kinds of boxers. They can be summed up, in my opinion, by the difference between the Klitschko brothers. Right? Vladimir Klitschko, I'll name someone a little bit more current. Right? Vladimir Klitschko has a set of tools. Right? Left jab, left hook, overhand right. You rush in, he tucks you under an arm, he clinches you, he leans on you. Right? And he's going to do that every round. It's a winning formula for him. Right? He's going to do that. The question is, what can you do with that? Right? That's his strategy. You know it going in. You know how he's going to try to beat you. You know he's going to come out and have that strategy, regardless of what you're doing. You know that if you flip the script, Tyson Fury, and you come out and that strategy is losing for Vladimir Klitschko, Vladimir Klitschko is then going to continue to use that strategy and lose round after round after round. Now, I know I'm in the minority. What else is new? But his brother was different. Right? His brother had skills. Don't get me wrong. Right? Pretty good jab. Excellent overhand right. Very hard puncher, just like Vladimir Klitschko. But Vitaly Klitschko was wired differently. He's wired more like Juan Manuel Marquez, Floyd Mayweather. Right? He'd come out and he'd look at you. Right? You're studying him. He's studying you. Right? His strategy depends on what he observes you doing. Right? A lot of the early rounds in a Vitaly Klitschko fight was Klitschko coming out with his plan A, but understand, he himself doesn't plan to use that plan A the entire fight. If you're prepared for this, he's going to do that. If you're prepared for that, he's going to do this. Right? If he has to fight you long range, he'll fight you long range. If he needs to fight you inside, he'll fight you inside. Right? His game changes depending on the opponent. So when you look at Vitaly Klitschko films, you're going to notice that, you're looking at really different approaches from the same guy. Right? That's what I call adaptive reactive. Right? I know the phrase now is overused here online, but let's just say a fighter who is in the ring reading you. In fact, let me flip the script a little bit. I believe Vitaly Klitschko's plan A was always to adapt to you. Right? His plan B is what he comes out with in the first round. Right? One of my favorite pieces of film footage is the Rumble in the Jungle. At the end of the very first round, right? Ali comes out. He ends up on the side of the ring against George Foreman. He's rope-a-doping George Foreman. His corner, Angelo Dundee, the guys in the corner are waving at him to get off the ropes. The rope-a-dope wasn't even the corner's game plan. It's Ali on the fly, figuring out what worked. Now you have a guy at light heavyweight, Juergen Braehmer. Right? Juergen Braehmer to me is Vitaly Klitschko in his approach. Right? The Crusher, Sergei Kovalev, to me, is Vladimir Klitschko. So, Kovalev, early in fights, he comes out, he'll look at you for a bit, but then you know what he's going to do. He's on his front foot, right? He'll pick his spots, but he's offense. The question is, can you deal with his offense? You know he's two-handed. You know he's going to be in there throwing a lot of hooks and stuff like that. Right? That's who he is. He doesn't want to get too close to you. He doesn't want to get too far from you. Right? He wants to be in range where he can empty the gun. That's his game plan. Right? By the third round, he usually gets there. Right? The covers are off. He figures out the distance, and then he's doing his routine. Right? Juergen Braehmer's different. Juergen Braehmer is there reading you. Right? You know, you'll see him early in fights. He's not doing much. But yet he's doing everything. Right? Because he's figuring out your code. Now, once a guy like that cracks your code, it's over for you. Not just in that fight, but in subsequent fights. In other words, the best time to beat a Juergen Braehmer, a Vitaly Klitschko, a Juan Manuel Marquez, a Floyd Mayweather, is early in a fight. You need to get to them before they crack your code. Right? Manny Pacquiao comes close. Knocks down Marquez 3 times in the first round of their first fight. Marquez gets off the canvas. He cracks the code. Right? Forget the official decisions. Let's just say the dynamic between the two men changes from that point forward. Right? Zab Judah comes out against Floyd Mayweather. Drops him. I know they didn't count it as a drop. When a guy gets hit and his glove hits the canvas, that's a knockdown. Right? Zab looked faster than Floyd. Zab looked in control. Mayweather cracks the code around the 4th round. That fight is not the same. Mayweather, Marcus Maidana. Maidana runs across the ring, is trying to impose himself on Floyd Mayweather. Right? The first few rounds of that first fight create enough folklore where the guys feel that they have to do it again. I'm just telling you, after those first few rounds of that first fight, Mayweather cracks his code. You knew when they announced the rematch that Maidana was in trouble. Right now, let's just say Juergen Braehmer has already fought his next opponent. Right? Eduard Gutknecht. He's already fought him. Understand, Braehmer is a technician. He's adaptive reactive. He's not getting by on energy. He's getting by on strategy. Right? It's different. Right? This is the guy who knows how to pitch. He's not getting by on adrenaline. He's getting by on knowledge. Right? He won the first fight. My point to you is he's already cracked the code. Right? You don't want to bet against this guy in a rematch. Let me point out that one of the most fascinating fights in boxing, in my opinion, that could possibly be made would be the Crusher Kovalev against Braehmer. Right? Because if, and it's a big if Braehmer makes it out of the first 4 rounds, I'm not sure if Kovalev is going to know what to do with him. Right? Because Kovalev has holes in his game. Right? He was down against Darnell Boone. He was down against Blake Caparello. Right? He's been hit with some shots. He has some holes in his game, and I'm just telling you that the Vitaly Klitschko Ali adaptive reactive personality type is going to find those holes around the 4th round. Right? I'm expecting Braehmer to win easily today. Forget the press here in the United States, because Braehmer's been fighting a lot in Germany. Just understand that this guy has been a champion at light heavyweight for some time. This guy is one of the most dangerous men in the division. Right? I would take him over guys like Adonis Stevenson. Right? This guy is a boxer's boxer. He's a big-time craftsman. He has been in the game a long time. If you look at his amateur career, you're going to find out that he has beaten a lot of the biggest names in the sport. And he's a southpaw. Right? So, I like Juergen Braehmer because it's a rematch. There's even a possibility that Braehmer ends this by KO. Understand, his opponent's nickname is Energy Eddie. Right? His opponent is energetic, comes in feeding off adrenaline. Right? You know, off the mood in the room. In my opinion, that's exactly the kind of guy that a sharpshooting, adaptive, reactive craftsman feasts on. I like Braehmer here. I want the boxing public to start demanding Braehmer against Ward, Braehmer against Kovalev. Right? Understand, too, guys like Braehmer, who are operating on a math level, right, a skill level, making adjustments, right, changing formulas, right, doesn't have to rely on the corner, is a general in the ring. I consider that different, by the way, than, let's say, Manny Pacquiao, who I view as Vladimir Klitschko, as opposed to Floyd Mayweather, who is like Vitaly Klitschko. Right? Let me just say, too, in the post-Lennox Lewis era, right, I would say that Vitaly Klitschko is the best heavyweight of that era. Right? I'll say that Tyson Fury has a chance to, challenge that. But Tyson Fury is just starting. Right? Vitaly Klitschko, I want people to look at his career. I want people to look at his fight against Lennox Lewis. Right? That's greatness against greatness decided by skin. Right? Anyway, I'm taking Braehmer today. Terrible odds. He's a 10-1 favorite. He should be. More important than today's fight, though, is Braehmer in the future. I know he's older, but when you have defensive skills, right? When you're adaptive reactive and you remember things, when you know how to fight like this, you have several years left in the sport. I like Braehmer. Keep an eye on him. He's underrated. He's ignored by the American press. He shouldn't be. He's one of the very best at light heavyweight. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.